Sup guys, I'm Kel, Red Zone Rogue, and today I have another, if this can focus, there we go, Force of Will deck strategy video for you guys. Obviously we are covering Brunhild this time in an attempt to cover all of the new Valhalla rulers. Brunhild is one of my favorite ones. I kind of wanted to wait until the Willpower Awards Brunhild came out, but that is taking forever, so I'm just gonna let's just do it guys, let's just talk about Brunhild. This deck has actually had several revisions from myself. This is a mono light deck. A lot of these decks are going to be like mono-colored, just kind of to make it an easy transition for new players, transitioning from like the starter decks into like an actual deck. I mean, they're actual decks, but you know what I mean. I originally started this one out as like a Valkyrie deck, and I found that there's not a whole lot of really good Valkyrie cards. There's some pretty good ones, but not enough to make like a really strong deck, so I took a different direction for this one, and without further ado, I've talked enough. Let's get started. So our ruler, obviously, here is Brunhild with her crazy-ass hair. I mean, still pretty good as a top-tier waifu here, but pretty simple ruler, actually. She has a Divinity 10, like all of the new Valhalla rulers. She has a Judgment of 2 light, 2 of any, and an Energize of a light. She is a ruler Valkyrie, which, you know, may or may not matter here and there. And then her J-ruler side is pretty cool. It is Brunhild, Caller of Spirits, 1200, 1200. She's a J-ruler, Valkyrie. Still has Divinity 10. She has flying now, which is kind of crazy. I don't know what's giving her flying, just like the ability to jump really high. I'm not sure, but in any case, she has an enter. Put target Resonator from your graveyard into the field. So it's kind of got like this Reanimator, like, built-in ability, which is super cool. And it says when this card enters the field, perform the effect. So, yeah, this is really cool. I felt that this ability wasn't like super strong when you're playing with a lot of small Resonators, so instead we went with some big Resonators. Before we start talking about those guys, let's talk about the runes. Alright, so first up for the rune deck, we have Blessing of the Sun. This is a chant rune, Divinity 2. It costs 2 light. It says you may pay 1 light less to play this from a rune area, so it only costs 1 for us. It says J Resonators you control gain plus 200, and at the next end of turn, recover this card until end of turn. This is a really good card for aggressive decks, which is what we're playing, and it's just really good. It gives you a good offensive push while simultaneously leaving, being able to recover all your Resonators. Lets you, defend on the backswing, so you can like do an all-out attack without the fear of repercussion, which is pretty good. And for only 1 light will, also really good. The next rune I want to talk about is Whispers of an Angel, and this one's a little bit interesting. I can see you going with a different one other than this one, but I kind of like this one because of how cheap it is and because of what it does. So it is a chant rune with Divinity 2. It has quick cast, so you can play this, basically anytime. It says you may pay 2 less to play this from a rune area, so once again, it only costs 1 light will to play. That's really, really cheap. This is a really good early drop. And it says you gain 800 life, which is like, whatever. 800 life is a good chunk, but it's not a big deal or anything. And you draw a card. So this is like an extra card draw and a little bit of extra like buffer room with your life. I like this card quite a bit because it's so cheap. It gives you a little bit of card advantage because you're not really using a card. You're just using your rune, and it lets you activate a rune at pretty low cost. So yeah, Whispers of an Angel is a pretty good one in my opinion. Next up we have the one ring. We have Ring of Legend. This is Divinity 3. It costs 1 light. You can kind of see a theme here. We have a lot of low cost runes, which I think are really powerful, especially when we have a lot of high cost Resonators in the deck. Rune, quick cast, target J Resonator gains eternal until end of turn. Really, really good ability to like protect any of your dudes. It does J Resonator, so you can protect Brunhild if you need to, or it can protect some of your big beaters that we have coming up. Just for one, I think this is really good, and it's kind of like a good blank, blank your removal kind of card. So yeah, I like Ring of Legend quite a bit. And now we start our removal runes. This is Brunhild's Wrath, Divinity 3, costs 1 of any and 1 light. And we kind of broke that, that 1 cost trend here. And it just says, destroy target rested J Resonator. That is super cool. Can blow up, J Rulers can blow up any Resonator as long as they're rested. Punishes aggression, punishes abilities. Brunhild's Wrath is sweet, and it only costs 2. It's really, really good. Like this card a lot. I can see this being played in almost any light-based deck that runs runes. So yeah, really good. And then finally we have our signature rune, Odin's Judgment. Divinity 2 costs 2 light, 1 of any. This is the Master Rune for Brunhild, which means you can only play this if your J-Ruler is Brunhild or Brunhild Caller of Spirits, and it just says destroy all Resonators. So if you are getting overwhelmed early on, if you're playing with a deck more aggressive than our deck, and they're just swarming the field and they're beating your ass down, you can just play this, wipe the field, and then potentially next turn, Judgment into, do your Judgment and then resurrect one of the dudes. So, yeah, really good. I mean, it's just a really good to have a board wipe at the ready anytime you need. And this is, the top end of the runes. And also, let me go through these real quick. Because of our divinity, just the way the math adds up, you can basically play any combination of 4 of these. So, yeah, that is pretty sweet. Alright, and next up we have our Magic Stone deck, and this is very, very simple. I run a 4 of Magic Stone of Faith. For no particular reason, we do have a couple humans and or Valkyries in the deck, but it's not really that big of a deal. I'm just running them just because we can. If you're making this deck, you don't need these. These are really not needed for this deck. And it says it's a special Magic Stone. You can rest to produce a Light Will, and if you use that will to play a human or Valkyrie, it cannot be cancelled. So it's pretty good, and we do have a couple humans in the deck, but honestly, it's not that big of a deal. And then the rest of it is all just light Magic Stones with this really, really sweet 0 art. I love any chance to use my full art Vingolf 3 stones because they are all super, super cool, and this is probably the best looking one, so yeah. And now let's talk about the Resonators of the deck, and here we have the strategy. We are playing an Angel tribal deck with Eritron, Angel of Knowledge. This is a really good 1-drop. We run a full playset of her. She's a 200/200 for 1 light. She's an Angel. She has flying. She has an enter ability. You gotta look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an Angel from them, put it in your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in a random order. So it's basically a 1-drop draw spell that also has flying. Pretty good way to cycle through your deck and get the angels that you need. We are running a critical mass of angels, basically all of the ones that I think are worth playing that are just mono light these days. And yeah, not much else to say about this, just a good card that replaces itself. Continuing that theme, we have one of the only 2 non-angels in the deck with Venus, Mages of the Metal Star. She's got a lot of the text on here, but only one line that actually matters. She's a 1-drop, 200/200. She's a 7 Luminaries Mage / historical. That doesn't matter in the slightest. It says, when this card enters the field, choose 1. Reveal any number of historical cards, blah, blah, blah. We don't care. We're not playing any other historical cards. Except for, itself. And you can put a +100/+100 counters on this card, where X is the number of historical cards revealed. Whatever, we're never going to do that. Or, draw a card. So yeah, once again, just a 1-drop, draw a card. It makes a body on the field that you can block with, that you can pump with some of our other pump spells. Just having cards that cycle and replace themselves are just really strong in card games like this, and yeah, this card is just really strong. Next up, we have a full playset of probably one of the best 1-drops in light right now, the Acolyte of the Sun, 200/200 Resonator human. Oh, there's the human. This is the only human in the deck. You can rest her to produce a light will. Super good. This is your Sacred Elf, your Llanowar Elf, that kind of ability, but they swapped it into light right now, which is really, really cool, and it fits really well with this deck. It's just helps us ramp out our big old angels and creates a body to block with and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Acolyte of the Sun is kind of a no-brainer for a lot of decks these days, actually. Next up, I run a full playset of Ak, Angel of Clairvoyance. This one's like an iffy one. We're just basically running this so we can hit critical mass of angels, and that's true for some of the angels coming up here. It's pretty good, but it's not like crazy good or anything. It's a 500/600 for 2, which is pretty good stats. 1 of any and 1 light. She's an angel. She has flying, also good. And enter 4C1, and what that means is you gotta look at the top card of your deck, and you can either put that back on your deck or put it on the bottom of your deck. It's basically Scry if you're familiar with Magic the Gathering, and that's pretty good. Pseudo card advantage, on a pretty decent flyer, and yeah, and she's an angel, so yeah. Next up, we have a pretty powerful angel, and that's basically all she does. She's just strong. She is phallic? Phallic? I don't know, man. Phalug? Is it a G? Phalug? I don't know. The Angel of War. I'm just going to call her the Angel of War. She's pretty good. She's an 800/800 for 3 light will. That triple light pips doesn't really matter to us because we're just playing all light cards. She has quick cast, flying, and first strike. That's really good. She's a really good surprise blocker. You can play it at the end of your opponent's turn to get a surprise attacker for the next turn. She has flying and first strike, so she's really difficult to block. just a really, really good aggressive card, and we're going to want to like use her to beat our opponent down. Next up we have Fool, the Administrator of the Moon, I can say the words right, and she's very similar to the Angel of War in that she's just a really strong beater. She is a 1000 for 2 of any and 2 light, so we're getting on the higher end of the scale here. Obviously she's an angel, she also has flying, and she gains +200 and barrier during your opponent's turn. So on your turn she's just a 1000 flyer, which is pretty good, but on your opponent's turn she becomes bigger, so she's a good blocker, and she gets barrier, so she's really resistant to removal. Not quite resistant to a lot of quick cast removal, but pretty resistant to, you know, any other type of targeted removal, which is pretty good. So we are running a full playset of her. If another angel comes along that's big around her cost and does some more exciting things, we'll probably replace her, but for now, she's what we got. And finally for the Resonators, we have Ophiel, Angel of Guidance, and this card really makes the deck work really well, actually. She's a 1200 for 3 of any and 2 light, so that's kind of on the higher end of things. She's an angel, she has flying, she has a really, really sweet enter ability, and this is the card you really want to reanimate with Brunhild. She says, search your deck for an angel not named Ophiel, Angel of Guidance, with total cost X or less, where X is the number of light runes revealed from your rune area, and put it into the field. Then shuffle your deck. Remember how I said we can really only play 4 light runes total? Well, that doesn't really matter. So we don't have any 5-drop angels that we want to get because we can't get Ophiel anyway, and the next biggest one is Fool here, that is a 4-drop. So as long as we have our 4 light runes revealed, we can basically go get any angel we want, and the ability will trigger when we reanimate her with Brunhild, so that's like crazy good value, especially if you wipe the board and then reanimate Ophiel and then go search for another big angel, and that's just like, bam, I have a win condition here, you gotta answer my board or I'm gonna kill you in like 2 turns. So yeah, this deck is very threatening. Almost all the Resonators have flying, all of like the strong ones have flying, so it's really difficult to block. Yeah, and it's just, angels are cool, man, so yeah. Alright, so let's talk about the chants in the deck. So this one is a 3 of in the deck. It is Protection of the Angels. We've got the angel theme going on here, and this card's pretty good, especially since we really want to protect our big angels, and that's what this card does. So this is a quick cast chant for 1 light will, so it's pretty good, pretty cheap. It says play this card only during your opponent's turn, so you can't do it on your turn, which is a bummer. But it says target Resonator gains +800 and barrier until end of turn. Players cannot chase to this card, so they can't counter this or cancel it. They can't do any effects in response to it. Yeah, this card's just kind of like, bam, my guy has barrier, it's bigger, deal with it. But not immediately, deal with it when you have priority. This card's really good in protecting your angels, because barrier makes it so that their stuff can't be targeted, or your angels can't be targeted, and the 800 kind of protects it from damage-based board wipes. So if it does like, you know, 1000 damage to all Resonators, and you can pump up your angel to survive it, super, super good. This card's good, and I kind of almost think about it as a 1-drop cancel spell that your opponent cannot chase to, which is pretty good. Next up we have some removal cards. This is Spear of the Valkyrie. It has Divinity 2. We don't really care about that because we're not putting it in our rune deck. It is a chant rune. It has quick cast. It says you pay 2 more to play this card from a rune area, and we're not playing it from a rune area, so it only costs 2 to play. It says this card deals damage equal to the highest attack among J Resonators you control to target J Resonator. If you control a Valkyrie, you gain that much life. We don't really have Valkyries except for Brunhild, which is very, very relevant. So we will gain that much life because it doesn't specify Valkyrie Resonator, and Brunhild is always a Valkyrie. And since we're running a lot of big, strong angels, we're going to be doing a lot of damage. So this is a pretty good removal spell, being able to kill your opponent's dudes at quick cast speed and gaining you some life. It's a little situational because you have to have a big angel to deal a decent amount of damage, but you know, the opportunity cost isn't super high because we're running a lot of Resonators, and you know, you gain life too, so it's pretty good for this deck. There's probably better out there, perhaps not right now in mono white, but we'll see what the rest of the Valhalla cluster has, and this card is very likely to get replaced. Next up we have a really, really popular card. This is Separation of Fates. We run a full playset of these. This is a 1-drop quick cast chant. It says target J Resonator loses all abilities until end of turn, draw a card. That's really good. I mean, if their opponent has a Resonator, or J Resonator actually, with a really pesky ability, just boom, you don't have any abilities, and this card replaces itself. It's just fantastic. I don't really need to say much about it. This card is seeing play like literally everywhere. So yeah. Finally, we have Resuscitating Will. This card is amazing. I'm only running 3 because I only have 3 extra ones for this deck. If I had another one, I would run 4. It's a chant, aura part doesn't really matter. For 1 light, it has quick cast and it says recover target J Resonator. That is super, super, super good. It basically lets you get 2 attacks in at once. So if your opponent is at like, I don't know, let's say 1500 life, you can attack with your 800 Angel of War, recover it, and then attack them again for 800. Like, this is just a really good card that lets you win out of nowhere. You can even create some fringe cases, like doing surprise blockers. You can do some kind of shenanigans with that, but, you know, getting double attacks is super good, especially only for 1 will. I like it a lot. And there you guys have it. If you liked the video, then maybe go ahead and like, comment, and or subscribe, all of that YouTuber shill shit. You can go ahead and follow me on Twitter too, at RedZoneRogue. I post stuff about card games, video games, random other crap that I like. And yeah, let me know in the comments below what video you would like to see next deck-wise for Force of Will. What ruler? Isis, maybe Arthur, maybe Chamimi, though Chamimi's like seeing a lot of competitive play right now, so I'm not super interested in that. But yeah, just let me know what you'd like to see, and I hope to see y'all next time for some more Force of Will content. Have a good one all, and I will see you later.